Check. Hello, welcome to my compound life. Thanks for watching. I'm Jonathan. Nice to see you. It's the 10th of November 2025. It's a little bit over midday. So I'm gonna drive somewhere, but I guess it's always nice to bring you along on my journey. In today's video, what I want to talk about, it's a little bit about Bitcoin and Ethereum ETP, right? So if you're in the UK, I think strap in. It would be relevant for you, for myself, because personally, right, I've been holding Bitcoin, and I'm also considering shifting some of that into Bitcoin ETP, not Ethereum. I'll explain why in just a moment. Mainly on Bitcoin ETP for longer term holding, right? Because I think it's come to a point that, I kind of figure out in terms of investing, right, for the family, for myself, sometimes it's a very personal thing, right? Even though you spend time, you teach your family, you teach your kids about investing, right? Nothing quite resonates until they kind of goes through that stage themselves, right? So to a certain extent, holding Bitcoin, where you have to fiddle with your hardware wallet, cold wallet, addresses, protocol, etc., it's sometimes quite difficult for people to grasp, right? So that's why, having a Bitcoin ETP or Ethereum ETP in this case really does make sense. Okay, so before we get onto that, I just want to explain a little bit about the rules of the games, like the HMRC update. And that's why choosing the right platform before you even get started with Bitcoin ETP becomes extremely important, right? As of November 2025, UK investors can confidently buy physically backed Bitcoin and Ethereum ETPs inside stocks and shares, ISAs, and SIPP with 100% tax-free growth, right? So essentially that means buying within a wrapper. HMRC also explicitly stated that on the 8th of October recently, 2025, which is last month, confirming full eligibility and treating gains as simple as CGT, which is 18% to 24% if you're in the UK, outside wrappers only, right? So anything outside wrapper, CGT will be about 18 to 24%, okay? So outside wrapper, that will essentially means you buying the Bitcoin ETP or you buy your ordinary stocks and shares through a brokerage account, right? So it's being treated exactly like shares, buying, your Apple or Tesla shares, take for instance, where you only pay capital gain tax when you sell at a profit, right? Of course, current CGT in the UK for 2025 and 2026 for basic rate is about 18%. For higher rate taxpayer, it's about 24%. But of course, you will still get the £3,000 annual CGT allowance. So make sure you take that in mind, right? Especially you're a little bit like me, trying to, cashing out your Bitcoin now. So bear in mind to take advantage. So first 3K profit each year, it's tax-free. No tax on dividends. These ETPs don't pay any, and no tax just for holding, right? Of course. However, right, I need a caveat. The uncertainty here from 6th of April 2026, these products will be shifted to the, what they call it, the innovative finance ISA category, right? That's important. And for now, a lot of the platforms that you buy your ETPs from may not necessarily be supporting this finance ISA category, right? Some of the ones that are supported include AJ Bell, Interactive Investor, Trading 212, and so forth. So these platforms already offers these seamless in existing ISAs and SIPPs for at least the next 5 months, right? So bear that in mind before you kind of want to be full on into investing Bitcoin or Ethereum ETPs, right? So far, what do you really need to consider? So far, what do you really need to consider when investing is choosing the right platform, ensuring that they're inside a wrapper, either ISA or SIPP. So essentially, you pay 0 tax on any gains, right? So this is very highly attractive, right? Because I personally will be going back into Bitcoin reaccumulation from next year onwards, right? And very likely it's going to be a couple of years worth of accumulation. And I'm hoping that Bitcoin by next year come when it's in the bear cycle, by the bull cycle comes, essentially Bitcoin will get to another all-time high or 2 to 3x from my initial, investment, right? So essentially ensuring when you go about in purchasing this inside a wrapper, either through ISA or SIPP, you can pay 0 tax or any gains. No CGT, no income tax, no reporting to HMRC, and this is 100% tax-free. So I think this is highly exciting, right? I'm excited. I'm personally excited about this too, right? So I just want to quickly call out a few companies that provide these ETPs, either Bitcoin ETPs or Ethereum ETPs. So I'll start with talking about Bitcoin ETPs. I'll just call a few of them out. Bitwise, it's got the ticker ID BTC1, where 1 is the alphabet 1. The fee is as low as 0.05% as of November 2025, right? But bear in mind, this fee is temporarily reduced from 0.2%, so valid at least 6 months, then until further notice, right? So it can be highly attractive now, but it will revert back to about 0.2% later. There's another one, 21 shares, ticker CBTC, right? Fee is about 0.1%. It's permanent low fee, core product, reduced for UK retail launch, right? Another one is BlackRock, ticker IB1T or IBIT, right? It's 0.15% until the 31st of December 2025, and it will revert back to about 0.25%, right? Wisdom 3, which I think I've got exposure to this, ad exposure to this recently on Facebook. I think Wisdom 3 has been heavily advertising on Facebook. Ticker is BTCW. Fee is about 0.15%, similar to BlackRock, and of course would revert back to 0.25% after the 31st of December. So same fee as BlackRock. CoinShares, ticker is BITC, 0.25%. Fee. Bitwise, ticker is BTCE. The fee is between 0.2% to about 2%, dependent on your legacy structure, right? So older high liquidity product, not the promoted low fee core version. Don't know what the hell that means. But anyway, I think this is the one that's rather high for Bitwise. And of course, 21 shares, which a lot of my friends are currently using. Ticker for their ETP is ABTC at 1.49%. Right. Okay, so these are some of the core Bitcoin ETP. I'm going to call out a few Ethereum ones, Ethereum ETP. Again, from Wisdom 3, ticker is ETHW at 0.35% fee. 21 shares at ETHC at 0.1% fee. I think it's very low fee. May include staking invariants, right? Bitwise, I'll come to explaining proof of work, proof of stake, POW versus POS in just a moment, right? Bitwise, it's SEC ETH or BETH, a fee waiver until further notice on flagship. And of course, CoinShares. CoinShares, hang on, I've got a phone call. Sorry about that. The wife's calling. Okay. So I think there are definitely a few key takeaways here. Just now I spoke about the platforms, and at the same time, these are some of the core providers of ETPs in the UK. So choose one wisely that essentially can fit under your wrapper, either through ISA or SIPP. But more importantly, to also take into consideration, right? I think especially cash ISA. I think soon Rachel Reeves will be announcing it will drop from £20,000 to about £12,000, right? So it's definitely a good time for you to look into your investment ISA and really make benefits of it, right? There are, of course, things that I also want to highlight is when it comes to Bitcoin versus Ethereum ETP, right? And of course, we all know that from a Bitcoin perspective, it is a proof of work technology, right? Essentially means a lot of miners, they will need to mine for the Bitcoin, and eventually when they get reward, they'll get rewarded with Bitcoin, right? So a lot of nodes, a lot of miners, they need to compete to achieve the rewards. Whereas, so Bitcoin itself, it doesn't really provide that yield staking reward, right? Whereas Ethereum, it does provide that yield staking reward. Essentially, it works on a technology called proof of stake, where essentially a lot of people like myself, if I buy Ethereum, I would stake my Ethereum with a node, with a network provider, and in return, what they do, they will share the staking reward with me, right? I think that's something that you need to also take into consideration, because it might be highly attractive to think that, okay, Ethereum is providing a staking reward of whatever percent, which I think, FYI, for if I stake my Ethereum through myself and not through one of the ETP providers, I think the staking reward will be a lot more higher, maybe higher by 1 or 2%, right? So for me to stake my Ethereum, not through an ETP, of course. I sometimes gain about 7 to 8% in terms of my reward, right? 7 to 8% they'll give me back through Ethereum, right? Under such the Ethereum ETPs, I reckon they will only probably be giving you 3, 4, maximum 5, or less than 5%, right? So that's something to bear in mind. But I hope that you actually see the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Because Bitcoin, the amount of Bitcoin that gets generated are essentially capped, right? What that means is there will only be 21 million Bitcoins that can be mined, right? So there will be a limited circulating supply, and knowing how scarce Bitcoin are right now, like people are essentially treating it like gold. They call it digital gold. So there will only be more people that will accumulate Bitcoin and not really selling it, right? So to me, it does seem that the Bitcoin price will only go up over a period of time, right? However, for Ethereum, there's no limitation in terms of the supply, right? I think it's true to infinity, right? A little bit like the money that you're holding right now, the pounds, the US dollars, right? You know, why people always talk about currency debasement, etc., right? Essentially, whenever government needs more money, whenever government needs to bail out your banks, right? Like previous few years, there's a lot of banking crisis, mortgages crisis, and so forth, right? You need a little bit of bailing out. And where do government get all of this money? They have to print money. They have to sell more bonds. And who's going to take the hit? You and I, right? So that's why, this is why a lot of time inflation goes all-time high, you know, goes through the sky, right? So to that extent, right, if I want to invest for the longer period of time, right, I would personally go with more of Bitcoin, gold, as well as any of the hard asset like properties, you know, or even Bitcoin proxies, like the MicroStrategy and so forth, just so that I know that the value gets retained over a longer period of time, right? And not Ethereum, right? So that's something to bear in mind, right? But of course, it always sounds highly attractive because Ethereum will be providing you with some staking reward, and the staking reward can be as high as 5%, right? So you kind of have the assumption that every year I get about 5% in terms of whatever I put in. And at the same time, the asset itself will compound over a period of time with a CAGR of, I don't know, 15-20% each year. Essentially means I'm getting 25-30% for my Ethereum investment return, right? So bear that in mind. I still believe Bitcoin would gives us the bigger return and a more sustained kind of return for the longer period of time. So yes, I think that's something to look forward to and not get too carried away. However, if you have that understanding and say, I still believe Ethereum can give me higher return in the shorter period of time with higher CAGR, I think that saying makes sense too, right? So in that case, have some allocation strategy in mind, right? Would that be 50-60% on Bitcoin, and then 20-30% on Ethereum, and any of that onto any other crypto ETPs? I believe crypto ETPs, like a basket full of cryptos, will be coming out soon too, right? So that's to bear in mind too, right? So that would be the right approach of going at it. Okay, last thing before I kind of want to move on from this is to talk a little bit about ETPs versus Bitcoin itself, right? Because Bitcoin ETP versus holding actual Bitcoin, right? I still believe, right, anyone or everyone should really be holding Bitcoin as opposed to Bitcoin ETPs, right? Knowing that in the UK, like we are in the UK, if Rachel Reeves does come in and say, hey, for all of your cash ISA or whatever investment ISA, here are the caps, right? £12,000 per annum, right? Anything beyond that, right, you cannot put under that ISA, right? I think take full of that benefits, right? £12,000, would that be £7,000 or £8,000 into your Bitcoin ETP? I think that makes sense, right? Use that limit, right? Because these are all tax-free, right? You want to have over a period of time to build up your portfolio, right? And that's the right thing to do. Maximize on that SIPP or SIPP or your ISA, right? With the rest of the money, I still truly, strongly advise that what you might want to do is to hold Bitcoin, raw Bitcoin, right? Because why is that important? Because it offers you sovereignty, right? It provides you, it's kind of liquid in a way that, unlike gold or unlike your properties, come out. Unlike your properties, you can carry that with you anywhere, right? But more importantly, it's kind of like free banking in a way that you don't have limitation. I mean, you're not gonna have government banks, because in the UK I kind of felt eventually one day if they adopt the ID system in the UK, it may well affect how we bank in the future, right? So having Bitcoin would allows you to have that flexibility to carry your wealth, etc., with you, right? But of course, I want to ensure there are a lot of security protocol in place. Make sure that if you do store a lot of wealth in Bitcoin, right, make sure you have your seed phrases, etc., written down, and store that somewhere in a bank or somewhere, right, in a safety deposit box somewhere in a bank. That's very important, right? And of course, I've seen a lot of cases where people lost all of their Bitcoin and crypto because they store their wealth somewhere in a cold wallet, right? It's gonna be ages. I'm gonna be here ages. So jammed. Yeah, I think that's something to, let me go back a little bit. yeah, so that's something to ensure, you know, you get yourself protected. And currently, I don't think these services are fully available, where eventually, you know, you self-custody your Bitcoin and then you can go to a bank and get a loan, right? So these are available in other part of the world, like in the US, in certain part of Asia, not yet in the UK. However, I do think that, you know, this will eventually become available in the UK too. So that's why, you know, self-custody your Bitcoin is also another benefits for your future, right? Okay, I think I'll go from here. Let me go back. Yeah, so thanks for watching my video. I hope you kind of get good grasp of ETPs, Bitcoin ETPs and Ethereum ETPs. Make sure if you're building wealth in the UK, make sure that they are all in a wrapper like a SIPP or in your ISA, right? But at the same time, you know, there are differences between a Bitcoin and Ethereum ETPs, right? In terms of technology wise, right? I know Bitcoin, it's very high in terms of value. Right now it's about, I don't know, I think it's about $104,000 US now per Bitcoin. You might think, many of you might think, in that case I'll buy Ethereum or I'll buy crypto one day. Ethereum currently is at 3,500. One day it might get to 100,000, right? It will not, trust me, it will not get to 100,000, right? Because you need to look into the number of supplies, you need to look into the market caps and so forth, right? It will highly unlikely for Ethereum to get to 100,000, right? So you want to buy asset. I mean, in compound life, we don't chase after hype, right? I want to make sure that you guys invest in something in the long run that will brings you more values, right? So investing in Bitcoin makes sense as opposed to Ethereum, right? So we obviously spoke about the tech difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. I still think in terms of storing and holding value for a longer period of time, right? Bitcoin will continue to hold that value, right? So it's important to bear that in mind. Alternatively, okay, so maximize in terms of your ETPs, right? So you get your SIPP, you get your ISA. Make sure you kind of maximize that threshold. And if you've got extra money, income, stack the real Bitcoin instead, right? Maybe I'll have a video talk about how I would approach it, right? So that would be the right things to do. Yeah, and don't get carried away with staking and all of that, right? It's not worth the while. Okay, let me see whether they can fix my number plate. Okay, thanks for watching, and if you like my content, please can you like and subscribe, and I'll chat with you again soon. Thank you. Bye.